you for staying with us on Nigeria Decides. Now, next up on our conversation is how can we achieve a viable election in Nigeria, especially as Nigeria's elections have historically been tense. Joining us now for this conversation, we have Said Adelanwa, the founder, Change for Africa. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
We also have, he's still with us, Ewenla Mustafa, the Secretary of Liberation Movement, Lagos. Thank you as well.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, newcomer, first question. We know for a fact that this 2019 election is adjudged one of the costliest Nigeria had ever had. We know that there's over 242 billion naira earmarked for those polls alone. This is aside from what was given to security agencies. And of course, this is also apart from, they say, billions of naira being spent by political parties and candidates, as well as some dollars coming in from donor organizations and all of that. It is expensive, anyhow you look at it. Is it possible, as a way of, achieving more viable elections in Nigeria, for us to reduce the cost of, our election process or electioneering process?
Well, thank you very much. You see, first of all, for me, the first reason why the election is, the cost of this 2019 election is record high is because of the downturn in the economy. Since 2015, the dollar rose all the way from 197 naira to, at one point, 425, if I recall. And if you look at the exchange rate then and now, if you also look at most of all the material we use for our electionary process are imported. Nigeria virtually don't produce anything. We don't produce anything.
Is it because we're trying to be careful so that they don't get compromised, security-wise, or that we don't just produce anything?
We don't produce anything because we don't put our youth to work. And that is one of the major problems why we are paying this much to import all the materials that we use for election.
But are we technologically as advanced as that to be able to produce these very complex materials and infrastructure?
Of course we are not, but we can. That is one of the reasons.
But this will require a planning process, a projection, you plan and then you execute. But with the government coming in succession and each having its own plan, do you see that as a viability?
No, you see, what will solve this sort of problem, as far as I'm concerned, is until we begin to have a national plan. Nigeria has 774 local governments. And if you have a government that has been able to provide water, potable water, in Victoria Island local government, and there is no water in Shis local government in Bassa, then there is no national plan. We're still joking, which is one of the things Change for Africa is trying to bring to the fore. Informs why we've already partnered with the Association of Local Government in Nigeria, where we now have representation in all local government. We want to be able to educate people, most especially, about voter education. Nigerians don't know the reason why they vote. You talk about violence in election today, you talk about vote buying, you talk about election rigging, you talk about, religious and a tribal sentiment in election. It is because people don't know the reason why they vote.
I wouldn't want us to deviate.
So what I'm trying to tell you here is that we're going through all these things because we don't know the reason why we vote.
But when you have options of, they say, between the devil and the deep blue sea, which seems to be a play out in our political environment, we have the same set of people being recycled over and over again, and the options available to Nigerians is within these same group of persons, and you see some of them, even their sons are now taking it. It's almost like a hereditary kind of business in Nigeria. So when you see that, and we talk about encouraging people to vote, isn't it time the not too young to run law is, activated, new people coming into the scene? Wouldn't that be a better way to get people to show interest in, becoming active participants in the politics of this country?
Yes, honestly, if you just mentioned something very, very impressive that the Nigerian youth have achieved of late, which is the young, not too young to wrong bill. But as far as I'm concerned, that is not enough to change the status quo. When I say voter education, it's more or less a complex statement that revolves around every part of the reason why we vote, which determines our future. It determines where we're going to be in the next 4 years and perhaps even in the years to come. So people don't understand the reason why they vote. They vote today because you're a Christian. People vote today because this guy is a Muslim. I've been hearing people saying that, okay, if they vote one other party, they still have another 10 years to their own, another 8 years, they'll have another 8 years rather than 4 years to their own party. If we know the reason why we vote, we're taking voter education to the grassroots. If you take voter education to the grassroots, nobody should be able to buy a vote with any amount of money.
Now let's bring you back to viable elections in Nigeria. Now, I'll bring you in here, Ewenla,
right,
because one would say it's not necessarily about high budgetary allocation for elections, that the money that INEC got for this election that was postponed last week was way much. And then another school of thought insists that it's about management of fund and channeling it into the right things such that we're able to deliver the kind of election that we will be proud of. So what's your take on this? Is it just about budgeting monies? Are we really sure about the things we're putting these monies into, and the people who are managing the process, are they really the right people?
Yes, thank you. Well, first off, I must say that conducting an election, a national election anywhere in the world is not cheap. Yes, the entire budget INEC had for this particular election, yes, for me it was whooping, but for us to achieve a viable election in Nigeria that will not have to spend this much, I think we just need to involve a whole lot of more stakeholders who can run, particularly manage our funds for us more efficiently.
Fund management.
Fund management is
Okay.
because I mean, yes, this is Nigeria where lots of other sectors, lots of other things are still affecting us as a country. So particularly our transport, because I can imagine how much INEC has budgeted for transportation of these sensitive materials to the interior villages in every other part of the state. It will be a lot of money, and but particularly it's because we have failed to involve many other stakeholders who would have probably guided us, particularly in the area of the fund management. But I know that INEC coming another 4 years, I know that we might not be spending this much, because this year's election, of course, now we have how many? About 91 new political parties. A lot of other things has been invented. So I hope that next 4 years elections will not have to spend this much. But
can you give us a picture of a viable election, the kind of election that you want to see in Nigeria tomorrow?
Well, for me, the kind of election for me as a person that I want to see is that type of election where I can be in my room and vote on my phone. That's the truth. Because for me, the type of tension that goes around in Nigeria during an election, if you want to go back to one of the reasons why voter apathy is in place, is because people are under tension, because when you hear Nigerian election, a sort of fear comes into you because of maybe violence or so, but then it has reduced over time. So for me, the type of viable election I want to see is that type where we'll cut down on maybe the type of overheads that goes into running an election, particularly in type of logistics and maybe production of these sensitive materials. Like he has said, until we are able to produce the materials we use for our election ourselves locally, then we won't achieve that.
But then I asked him a question. I said, is it the reason why they produce the materials abroad could be because of the security feature? You want to be sure that it will not be cloned and that there won't be a compromise of the process. You want to be sure that nobody actually sees the samples before it comes into the country.
Now, it takes us to. Now, I don't think that's the problem. America they run their election, they produce whatever they use to run their election. I mean, and the issue of trust is not coming up anywhere. So for me, it's a fundamental problem that INEC as a commission needs to sit down and look into it holistically. We need to cut down on the budget for our national election. For me, that's 43, did you say 43 billion?
200.
So that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. I mean, and I know that if we plan our fund management more better, we wouldn't have spent that much.
All right, I have this question about our political parties. Some of the INEC chairman was talking about having a conversation after the elections as to the responsibilities ascribed to INEC, the commission itself. But we have 91 political parties, and from the press briefing, there was one time he showed us what the ballot paper looked like. You can see the length, and then you have disabled people, you have people who cannot see, and all of that. Is it possible for us to have less party, maybe even a two-party system in a democratic setting? A former chairman of the National Electoral Commission, that's Humphrey Wosu, in a recent interview said that this is outrageous for us to have over 90 political parties in a country. So I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, honestly, I also find it disturbing that we have over 90 political parties in Nigeria in the 21st century. You see, democracy is not something, we should take for granted. Because we have it, we need to understand what it is. And I still go back to understanding. You see, understanding is the secret of outstanding success. So for us to, first of all, understand, and for us to succeed in our democratic system, we need to understand democracy. Democracy is about the people. And giving people the right, platform to operate. Nigerian government is supposed to pay more attention to educating people. If really and truly they want to move this nation forward. If really and truly, and I repeat, they need to educate people. So if there is no ideology, sorry please, we don't have political ideologies in Nigeria. People vote for trivial reasons. Our future strongly depends on the choice of leaders who vote into power. So is it
possible, taking into, I say the dynamics of Nigeria,
yes.
People say, why do I say that?
Possible?
We have different, tribes, religion, interests, and so many
That's what I'm trying to say. It's possible. But, it requires a lot of understanding, which can only be derived through education. And this education must be taken to the grassroots, up onto the top. So you can then begin to start talking about a political ideology in our systems. We don't vote because of ideology. You don't have a political party where, just like you have in the US, they are the grand patron of democracy in the world. You have the Republican and the Democrat. You've seen people who stick onto being a Democrat for decades. In fact, for centuries. You've seen people who stuck onto being a Democrat for centuries. And they were only stuck to it because of the ideology. So our political systems has not been able to establish an ideological, a philosophical ideological platform that people can ride on and say it is either this party or the other.
Let me bring Gewela in.
Yeah.
Do you see a possibility of creating political ideology that will put people maybe into or max 3 strategic leanings in order for us to move our democracy forward? Is it even possible?
Well, the honest truth is, I think it is almost impossible for us to run a two-party system in Nigeria because of where we came from and how the entire democracy generated. Yes, I worry that, we have 91 political parties. For me, it's much. I mean, how do people have 91 ideologies? For different parties have their own ideology, different parties, different ideologies, differently. Yes, for me, having multiple parties also, has helped because it has given many other people a lot of platform, because some parties are run in a way whereby it doesn't give room for new people to join. And if you join, you might not be you will not be seen as a stakeholder until you do some level of, put in some level of input, and I don't think that's the way to go. Now, in Nigeria now, we have younger people coming out to run for elections from other newer parties. If it was to go from all those old parties, you might not be able to get a platform, not to even buy, not for you, not even a ticket would be possible for you, because you have to go through rigorous stages and rigorous loyalties and all that.
But should democracy be about giving everybody a chance, or be about people that truly have something to give as service to the people? For instance, we have the not too young to run bill, and we see so many young people coming up to run for. What is wrong with all of us coming together like they tried to do before? Is that not possible? Because for us to have viable elections in this country, people should actually have reasons, like you were saying, why they should vote. As it stands now, you also identify that people vote to religious inclination, ethnic inclination. How do we deal with this, really?
Well, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, you see, the way to go about it, for me, is first of all, you require leaders who have a burning desire to take this country forward, who are ready to choose sacrifice over greed. Sacrifice, I mean, a situation whereby you're ready and willing to let go of even what is of value to you in the interest of others. In greed, I mean, you have, for example, leaders today who have access to everything, and the people who they're supposed to serve don't have access to anything. I give an example of, police. All the so-called leaders and probably influencers, personality in our society today, don't just have access to police. They have police stations in their houses. They move about with police stations. The definition of police station, anywhere you can have 4 or 5 policemen is a police station. And we cannot pick a call and call a policeman to come to this place in 30 minutes as a citizen. Because of greed, they don't care. They already have access to police. The same thing applies to education. Because they can afford to send their children to school abroad, they won't care if we have good schools here. The same thing happens to healthcare. We don't have good schools, good hospitals here because they can afford to send their children. So you need leaders who are ready and willing to let go of what is of value to them in the interest of others. I see no reason why we don't have the best hospital in Nigeria today. Let's say Nigeria, for the record, because our president are more or less been medically incarcerated for over 100 days, or I don't know, whatever. And if today Nigeria is building the best hospital in the world, anywhere you can find it, and his ambition is to turn Nigeria into the mecca of medical attention, it's worth it. We need to start doing things that will break boundaries, that will draw attention, that will bring people, investors to Nigeria to say these people love themselves. Europe is developed because they love one another. America is developed because they love one. How do they love one? They do things in the interest of others.
Okay, let me bring you back to this. Remember, we're still talking about viable elections in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And earlier, he talked about technology, the fact that achieving a viable election system means that we can vote with our devices. We don't need to go out. And earlier on, we were having a conversation where a security expert told us about how the PVC issue can be laid to rest, that we can even have delivery systems where people register for their PVCs and it gets delivered to their homes or offices. So what's your own idea of what a viable election, the kind of election that we should be having in Nigeria should be, and how do we get there?
Well, honestly, there's nothing wrong in digitalizing our electoral process totally. I don't say anything, but it's not enough to give credence to election as being credible, fair, transparent, and trustworthy. The most important thing you first need to have a viable election in any society is to get people to know the reason why they vote.
Okay, yeah.
For me. And
Voter
until we do
education.
that, even if you have the digital stuff to, they will still do vote buying. They will pay you and will still do that. No amount of money should be able to buy a vote.
But then who buys the votes? Is it not the high and mighty who are supposed to know better, who want to be in power or get into power by all means? Those are the ones who fund vote buying. Yeah. So if you're talking about sensitization, is it cutting across, or are you talking about grassroots sensitization in this case?
From the rock to the from the bottom to the top. You have to start from the grass. You see, most of the people that vote today, like it's about really, let's say, let me look at the statistic properly. Maybe between 60 to 65% of electorate in Nigeria are from the locals. The people, the high and mighty themselves, don't even vote. Yes, they don't even vote. Trust me, they don't vote. Majority of them don't vote. They don't get their family doesn't even live here. They've all perhaps sent their children abroad. We don't have to say it the way it is. And until we understand the reason why we vote, I always say this, the reason why there's a need for us to take it more seriously, to let people understand so that they will know that this person you're about to elect is not about today. It's not about tomorrow. It's about the future of Nigeria. We need to put Nigeria first above every other device.
Interest. Now, the situation room, INEC situation room, opened at 6 p.m. today. So they will be taking account of all that is going on, more like having their eyes and ears everywhere, and Nigerians will be watching. And as well, there's been this hotline available to Nigerians, and INEC chairman said that anyone can report to INEC what is going on around them. It's a phone number on INEC website. Is that enough, that they've done to guarantee free and fair election and to be sure that things go well for tomorrow? Or what else would you suggest?
Well, the honest truth is, like I said, for me, I think INEC as a commission has improved, and I know it can only get better. So, yes, coming up with the hotline for people to call, and if there's any incident within their locality, is a huge upgrade. I don't think they had something similar in the past election. So, we hope that those hotlines work, and we hope that they are able to keep us up to speed of what is going on in different localities.
Thank you.
Yes, for me, it's a sort of way to douse people's tension on, because if you're in your house and you can call INEC to report a situation, it shows that there's a lot of upgrade. And you can,
beyond that, is there any other thing you would like INEC to put in place to ensure that the whole system is under control?
Well, there's so many other. There's so many things I think INEC can do to make
to be in control of the situation tomorrow, essentially.
Yeah, tomorrow, essentially. Yeah, there's a lot they can do. For me, I believe if they had given some of us that are civil society organizations the opportunity to establish our own situation room, and
there's a civil situation room in Abuja.
We are not allowed to disseminate information real time until they are collated at the world level. Okay. You understand? So you are not expected to just go ahead and start. I mean, those are not going to. INEC is saying it's not allowed. So if you do that, at your own, discretion. It's not accepted for CSO to do that.
A lot of people, organizations can still do parallel collation, Yeah, we've seen that happen in several other countries where elections have held, where INEC is collating and they're also collating, and if there are discrepancies,
APC did that last election, which was informed why, if you recall, APC released the presidential election result ahead of the INEC Professor Jaga's pronouncement at the end of the day, because they had their own private situation room. But these situation rooms are not, there should be something, the public should have access to. It's something that was supposed to be made transparent.
Absolutely.
So that all of us can have access to it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your thoughts. We've been talking with Said Adelanwa, the founder of Change for Africa. Thank you so much for coming. We've also had Ewenla Mustafa, Secretary, Liberation Movement Nigeria. Thank you so much as well.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And that's it for now. What are your thoughts on running a viable election in Nigeria? Do share that with us on social media. That's at Plus TV Africa. We'll take another break for the news update. We'll be right back. Stay with us.